Okay, Aunty Lehua. Let's start off with Tutu Peleʻiliahi. You can tell us what she was like, or
I wish I
anything you
knew what she
know.
was like, but
You know
what I've learned and what I've heard um, from our aunties and from my mama, who is named after Tutupeleʻiliahi, that she was a gentle woman, she loved nature, and she loved the aumakuas. Tutu would go out to the point in front of the puʻuhonua, across the puʻuhonua, and she would kahea. When the family would get together for gatherings, Tutupeleʻiliahi would go out there and kahea, and all the mano would come into the harbor. And the family would jump into the water and clean the barnacles off of the mano. And when they did as much as they could, and they wanted to start their pāʻina and their hoʻolaulea, they would get up out of the water and have their kaukau and sing their songs and inu I ka wai e pipi'i. And then they would, Hawaiians always celebrate 3-4 days, at least our family did. And so when it was time for them to leave, Tutu would also go out again to the point, and she would hail, and then all the mano would leave. Another thing that Tutu used to do was, I guess I don't know if she was one that could read signs in the sky, but she was able to not so much prophesy as see that something was going to happen. So I guess I would be like that. So she was one that the family always looked to help with pilikia of any sort. And I know of this pilikia situation because my mama, Peleʻiliahi number 2 that I know, she used to dance hula with Tutu Kapeka and the troops, and they used to go traveling all over the island. Well, I guess there was someone in the troop that was not very happy with Mama because she was the lead dancer and she wanted to be the lead dancer or whatever. So she took one of Mama's pāʻu that she had, and when they went over to the volcano, Halema'uma'u, to perform at one time, she took one of Mama's pāʻu and threw it into the pit.
Mm.
So after that situation, whenever they went out to perform, Mama could not perform because she'd get these blisters all over the body. They'd be practicing, doing whatever, and a couple of days before, these blisters would erupt over her body. So what she did was she went to see Tutu Peleʻiliahi and started crying. Tutu said, "What's the matter?" She said, "Well, every time we start getting ready to go, I get all this kaki'os all over my body." So Tutu made her bathe in the kai, in the ocean, and then said prayers over her, and she said, now it goes back to the person. She says, do you know somebody in your troop that is jealous of you? And Mama says, I don't know. She says, well, don't you worry about that. What's going to happen now is what she sent to you is going back to her. And she said, and she did it the wrong way because she went kiloi o pa'u into Tutupele's hale. So Tutupele just made, it just happened that it has to go through its process, but now it's going back to her. So that was one of those stories about Tutu Peleiliahi that were shared with me. The other one was that she used to go over to Paumoa and she would feed the baby sharks. She would go into the water and, she would, they always said, oh, she used to nurse the sharks. Now, I don't know, the term nurse is probably not correct because you can't nurse a carnivore, right? So she fed the baby sharks. And so that was the other story that was shared with me about Tutu.
She would go alone.
Yes, Tutu always went alone when she did things with her aumakua.
Mm-hmm.
But then she would tell the certain family members that that's where she was going and what she was going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the story got passed down, I guess, but it was never, something that was broadcasted so everybody knew.
How long would she go for when she went?
Sorry?
How long would she go for when she would go?
Well, it was as long as needed to feed,
I see.
and whatever she had that she had to feed the baby sharks.
Mm-hmm.
But Paumoa has always been kind of a sacred place, a quiet place.
Mm-hmm.
A place where not so much as sacred, but a place that was special to the family. Because the name Paumoa seemed kind of strange. I used to ask Uncle Eli, why did they call this place Paumoa? And he says, and poor, what's Pau? I said, Pau is finished, no more. And then, what's more? I said, chicken. So I said, so Pau chicken, or there's no more chicken? And he says, yeah, because there was an Ilio that used to chase the chickens and kill off the chickens. And then the people in the area, that chicken was their food too, right? And they always kept some for the next day. And then, so there was always just like you go out to fish, you don't fish ever, get it all out and then not have nothing, right? There's always time to replenish. Well, this little naughty Ilio started taking all the chickens, and then pretty soon there was no chicken. And so the place was then called Paumoa. But the naughty little Ilio was then chased after and killed, and his body was thrown into the kai out there in the little area out there and turned into a rock, and he's out there. His penance is that he's floating back and forth. When the waves come, he's bouncing back and forth in the kai. And that is Paumoa.
Yeah. And not very many people know about that Paumoa, yeah. Only like in our family, we always say, oh, where are we going to meet? Oh, Paumoa. So
Yes.
we know either we're going to go Hōnaunau Beach or we're going to go Paumoa. Yeah. So in part of the huaka'i, that's where we're going to go show everybody where it's at. Because only us know.
Right.
And when Uncle Duna, when we go diving, they always tell us, oh, go by Paumoa's side. So we know go by the dog. So,
Right. Exactly.
yeah. So one of,
And then I believe that the dog may have been a kupua too,
Yeah.
because in that time the Ilio, right? Just like Pua Lena.
Yeah.
I believe he was one of those, and that's why the people got a little hoo-hoo with him, and he was put to death.
Yeah.
But then his penance was he was going to have to be in the kai and see his naughtiness led him to this place.
Yeah.
And the Paumoa area was where the family, like you said, the family all gathered. And every time there was any kind of, besides Hōnaunau, if it was not big a crowd that was coming, they would go to Paumoa, smaller area to camp. Or at the Hōnaunau, that's a bigger area where they would congregate. But over in Paumoa, actually past Paumoa, the Tutuman's beach house, you know, the Tilton Hilton as they used to call it. The house, they used to have that house a little past Paumoa, actually along the wall. And that house, when the church, when the family gave the land to the Catholic Church down by Hōnaunau Beach, they took the house apart. They took the wood apart, put it and floated it from over on that side all the way down to where they put the house together off by Hōnaunau Beach. And when I was young and I was growing up, there was still this hale over there, and so they always called it, oh, we're going down to the Tilton Hilton, because the house was starting to tilt to one side, and they were starting to have pukas in the metal roofing.
Yeah.
But we could see the stars at night sometimes through the. But when it rained, it never rained in the house. I don't know. Probably the rain went down the corrugated roofing.
Yeah.
But it never really rained in the house. So I used to always get surprised. Tutumen, how come it doesn't rain in the house? Oh, lucky no home. I said, lucky? What? Rain comes down, it comes down. But that was, the family had the housing over on the other side and then moved it down to. And then the church, they had a church that was there that they built until they moved the church aumakua to the middle road. And one story that I can share with you all, after my husband and I got married, we'd go home to Kona all the time. And we'd always end up going to Paumoa too, because that was everybody small enough that Uncle Eli, Uncle Eugene, and all the family down from Hōnaunau that were residing there would go out there. Well, one evening we were there past dark. And so they brought out the kukui helepo, the lanterns, right? But it's called kukui helepo. So light that travels by night, kukui helepo. Okay. So they were still singing songs, playing cards, laughing, enjoying, sucking them up, having a good time. And then it was time to go home. So everybody started packing up. Okay, sister, see you later. And the other one was, hey, brah, don't forget, you got to meet us tomorrow. Or, you know, all this kind of conversation. And so everybody got in the car. The first uncle started up the car not stop. The second uncle started up the car no start. All the cars wouldn't start. And my husband's going, what's this? And then the uncle's laughing and enjoying himself and saying, oh my. Okay, anybody got some kauka? We never leave anything for our ohana over here. And they're pololi, they're hungry too. They said, share. So they put up some kauka, the thing, sat down and says, okay, mahalo. Got in the car, started up the car, and the car started. My husband couldn't believe it. All the cars didn't start, right? And then they're all cracking up and laughing and whatever. You know? So 10, 15 minutes later, get in the car, start. All the cars started. Oh, see you later, brother. Yeah, okay. Are we going to come down next week? You know, this kind of thing. But that was one that I experienced. And my husband was quite scientific. And he says, no, those kinds of things don't happen. He experienced it himself. And this was at Paumoa.
You know what the significance is with everybody putting their child's piko in the wall?
You know, that I'm tell you the truth, I'm not familiar with that because I always ask Tutu why, why they would do that because the ilio could go in the rocks and take the people, right? Because Tutu used to they would always bury.
Yeah, they put
And-
find a puka, then put another rock, and then pound the rock to stay in.
So I guess that was my only thought was that was for the child, in old Hawaii, the children were not living very long. And I guess this is maybe their way of thinking that this would, because their piko was safe,
Mm-hmm.
their piko was safe, that they would possibly grow up. But that's just my thought from what I've experienced, seeing the planting, putting it in the ground, planting a tree and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because we never asked question, but it was kind of like understood when
Exactly.
you have a child keep the pico and
Yeah.
wrap it in alcohol, and then we'll take it to the puhonua when we have the time.
And then, because Puhonua also is a safe place, right?
Mhm.
So, safety.
Yeah.
Blessings for the child.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of little things like that, but, you never at that time think to ask, or have some of the time, me so niele, I always ask them, Tutu, why this and why that? Oh, nui ka ni nau pua. Plenty questions, all time questions. So I always thought, but how am I going to know? I want to know. So, anyway, that was some of the things that I learned about our culture and our way of life down at Hōnaunau.
What about aumakua?
Well, Tutu men, we definitely know that because the Tutu Pele are here. And me also experiencing the Tutu man, being on his canoe with him and seeing him feed the mano, I know that the mano is our And then also that I'm not sure if it's Tutu's side of the family, but or another sister or brother of the family that the Pueo was also a aumakua, because I experienced the Pueo with my kahala aumakuana, my daughter. When she was born, Tutu had two dream names. Tutu lady, Tutu Mao. She had two dream names. One was Keahilau Mukani, which is
Carolyn's Hawaiian name.
and then Kahala Umakuana. So she gave the names to Aunty Ida, and Aunty Ida chose Keahilau Mukani. And then so when Kahala Umakuana was born, Tutu said that was baby's name. So whenever we go home to Kona, and I take Kapeka home with us, we would always be greeted by a pool. We'd drive by Mama's house, the pool would fly over. We'd go over to Uncle Mac's store, drive over, and this is daytime now, right? Drive over to Uncle Mac's store and see, and you can tell it's a pueo because it turns its face and it looks at you, so you can see the owl's face, right? So I asked Tutu Man one day, I said, Tutu Man, how come every time we come home to Kona, and every time, actually, I said, every time we go to Uncle Mac's store, there's a pueo flies over the car, flies from one side to the other side. So he says, baby in the car with you? I said, yeah. He says, oh, you know. Oh, you know. So what does that have to do? Like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, so I said, Tutu, what do you mean? What do you mean? So he said, it's Polo lady.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked Tutu lady. Tutu lady tells me, oh, poor, when you're supposed to know, you'll know. What's happening when I'm supposed to know, you will know. So I said, well, you know, is this baby's aumakua? I said, but I thought the mano was. Tutu says, well, sometimes we're lucky and we have more than one. So I suppose, so maybe different part of the family may have a different aumakua that is special. I said, so anyway, so when I started getting more involved and I wanted to find out about this aumakua stuff, I started doing hula with it, and then I found the story about Kahala o Mapuana, and actually I found out about Kahala o Puna and Kahala. So I asked Tutu, you know, Tutu, I read in the book the story about the pueo that revived his princess, but then was put to death again. And she was put to death, but he revived her, and then they tried again, and he protected her. So I said, so is the pueo Kahala o Mapuana's aumakua? She said, yes. I said, is that what I'm supposed to know when I'm supposed to know? I told her that. She says, I said, that's what you told me. When you're supposed to know, you will know. So is it now I'm supposed to know? She says, yes. But then, I said, you know, I found out that Kahala o Mapuana was one of the Maili sisters. And so she says, then you're supposed to know now. She said, because La'iye Ikawai was protected by the 7 Maili sisters. La'iye Ikawai lived in the forest in Panaeva, in a house made of mamo feathers. And whenever she would move, the different manu would chirp or would sing, whatever. So the people knew what she was, if she was waking up, a certain bird would sing. If she was going to come outside, another bird would sing. So Kahala o Mapuana was the last of the sisters that was by the door. So if whoever was coming to try to woo her or take her away from the area, if they passed the other 6 sisters, they would never get past Kahala o Mapuana. So I said, okay. So that was the story I learned. So she said, so now we're supposed to know that the story. So till this day, I always used to wonder why Tutu used to always do these kinds of things. She always, when you're supposed to know, you are know.
Yeah.
In other words, she wanted me to seek.
Yeah.
She wanted me to go and find these things myself.
To have a better understanding of the whole.
Right. The whole picture.
Yeah.